Welcome to the broadcast this evening, folks. Didn't have the smoothest day today. Got the notification out here a little bit late, and we're going to let some folks file in as they come along. This is going to be an interesting show this time. Plenty of things to get to, and one of them is that I'm going to start by really digging into what I think is the key here, is that the third season with Patrick Mahomes. It's something that you couldn't see coming a couple of years ago, but now that it's here. Hey, Marquand, how are you? You were the first one to comment because I have had computer problems all night long. So we're just going to kind of make do with what we have. I'm going to let everybody know. Norman, nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. I am putting it out now that finally we're live. It's been one nightmare after another in terms of equipment today. Nice to see you all. And I want to start because if you saw some of the footage that was put out by Patrick Mahomes' account himself, it kind of showed where he's at. And I think that's important because I think the man's been training. I think that he's been preparing a little bit more than maybe we saw last season. I think that it sets him up to be in a better position to do what he needs to do this season, which I think is going to be, in the end, a little bit more challenging. I don't think that it's going to be just a simple step it up and learn more of the offense or learn where Andy expects things to be as much as maybe we saw last season and the season before. We have the other people joining here. Welcome, everybody. Sorry about the late notice. Had a couple of issues going forward. Hot and spicy, you've already got a question. I will start to answer those here in a second. But I just want to continue down my thought trend while everybody else joins. In that, at the end of the day, having what we think is a more mature Pat Mahomes physically, I think that there are a couple things that we can expect, and I think we should definitely be considering what that means overall. It does mean running the ball is going to be, I think, a little bit more penchant. It's not just in Madden where you see him be able to actually pull the ball down and make more yards with it. I think it's going to be not just that particular part, but being able to withstand. And I think the added mobility, the added physicality that I see him training with in what he's thrown, just throwing the ball, makes me think that he's going to be a little bit more stable in the pocket where he doesn't feel like he has to get up and get out as readily. I think maybe this season, depending on how it's all gone in terms of training, in terms of how the line comes together as a 5-piece unit, that may be important. I'm not going to rule it out. And I'm sorry I'm making a couple of adjustments here. Like I said, folks, it's been a long, long day. Aaron Merrill, Meredith, our resident chief. Aaron, I've had a terrible go computer-wise. Barely got this thing to come on online. I'm actually using a backup laptop, so hopefully it still looks decent. But, folks, if you have any trouble, get with Aaron in the chat, and he'll be able to help you out. Super chat's open. If you would like to support the channel, I really appreciate it. And I want to tell you guys right now, we have some very cool stuff coming for you. Dan Harms, who you've seen before, we have a chat later this week, and we have a film session from him later this week. We have a piece from Matt Derrick. We're pulling everything in as we get going towards the season. And this season is going to be crazy. I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of like ups and downs that we're going to have to deal with. If you'd like to support the channel, the super chats are the way to do it, or jump over to the Teespring store and grab one of those shirts. Working on a couple of new things. That's still coming. The memberships are still coming. And one of the things that I wanted to tell you guys tonight is part of the new memberships for the top tier is going to be a private Zoom chat that you can have with me and possibly with Dan, that we can have your video questions. We can get that out to the rest of the channel. So if you want to have a voice on what comes on this channel, you're going to have that opportunity. And I'm really excited about that part because I feel like these chats are great, but I feel like it's a little bit too lopsided. It's too much me. And I want people to actually see you and see your question. I think that the context plays into it quite a bit. Before we go any farther, someone will ask, tonight's beer is my homemade Belgian triple in the Game of Thrones glass. Yeah, it's a theme. So cheers to you guys. Questions are starting to come in, so I'll get to them here. Just want to say, for those of you that are living in Washington, I'm sorry, not in Port Washington, but up in Wisconsin, if you're near Port Washington, check out my buddy's brewery over at Adventures Pub. It's incredible. And I just had a great conversation with him, and I want to make sure that I shouted him out tonight. So, Jeremy, you were the first one to ask a question, so you get this, even though where is everyone? It's because I screwed up, and the computer went down. I didn't get the thumbnail and the announcement tweet sent out before we started this, so that's where we're at. Hot and Spicy, you had the first question, so let's get to that. If you had a top 10 pick in the 2020 draft, who would you draft? That's a great question. And clearly we can eliminate all the quarterbacks, right? That's not really an area of need. So it comes back down to, could Chase Young have gotten there? How would you like to see Chase Young opposite Frank Clark? Because that's pretty intriguing to me. I won't say that it's the only choice that I would have made, but he definitely would have been the one that I aimed at the most. Now, I'm a little bit old school that way. Clearly, the NFL is trending more towards coverage being more important than pass rush. But for me, I still feel like they go together, and you need both. I'm just going to try to adjust this and get it out of the shot as much as it used to be. Bottom line, would have been Chase Young for me. It would have been, I don't think I would have taken one of the receivers that high, but it would have been tempting to put another speedster like Ruggs into this offense. That's what I do in Madden every time. So just so you guys know, I'm terrible at Madden. Don't ask me to play you. You'll kick my butt every time, but I enjoy it. I actually don't play the seasons in Madden. I just do the drafting. That's how I play Madden. Let's see. Marquand's doing good. I'm glad to hear it. Abby's back. How are you, Abby? And here's Jeff Porter. Mr. Porter, I'm sorry I didn't get to you this week. I meant to give you a call, and I will do that this week. I have an interesting new wrinkle that we might look at going forward. Folks, if you don't know Jeff Porter, he's the man that helps me with Rogue Analytics, behind all the data that is so important to what we do. Give Jeff a hand, because I couldn't have gotten that done this year without him, with all the other work that I had going on. But Jeff's talking about, do you see a real challenge from Denver or Las Vegas or LA for the AFC West title? That's a very good question. And I do feel like overall, 2 of the 3 teams made progress. I do feel like LA's taken a step back, most especially because I have faith in Justin Herbert. I like his game. He may not be the charismatic leader that they're looking for, but I like what Herbert brings as a quarterback. I don't think they're going to give him a fair shot. I think they're going to start Tyrod Taylor. And I'm not sure why. I got to tell you the truth. I think we've seen that play out before, and I like Tyrod. I think he's a good backup. I don't think there's any reason to install him in that starter spot when you have Herbert, a guy that needs reps at the NFL level. That's key. But they're going to. So it is what it is. I truly feel like the team that took the biggest step forward, and nothing against Drew Lock, because I like him and I like where he's going. I just don't feel that they've given him enough help. Yes, Jerry Jeudy's a help. Yes, Hamler's going to be a help if they can figure out how to use him correctly, which I'm not so sure about the Broncos coaching staff being able to pull that off. And that's really the question mark. It's not about Drew Lock. I feel like he'll make a natural progression, but I don't feel like the offense is going to adjust enough to make him super efficient. I'm not sold on Melvin Gordon in terms of health. I'm sure he'll put out for a few games, and then we'll be back to seeing what their small, shifty tailback does. And at the end of the day, if you can't grind yards, it's going to be tough for them. So the threat that I truly see is from the Las Vegas Raiders. Man, that's tough to say. I'm glad you put LV in there, or I would have messed it up. And the Raiders are a team that clearly are gunning for the Chiefs in all ways and forms. They specifically went out in free agency and added to their linebacker group in order to combat Travis Kelce, period. It's the only reason they did it. They were okay defending the run before. That was not the concern. They couldn't turn and run with Travis Kelce. Now, McCole Hardman's going to go blow past any linebacker, so that wasn't part of the equation either. It's about trying to control the underneath between the hashes as Travis tries to cross, mostly on the crossing routes that actually hurt them a lot. That's going to be key. But they also went on the flip side and added so much speed, specifically in Ruggs, but also in other players on the offense, because they have to get quicker, because they feel they have to score to keep up with the Chiefs. They can't do that. I'm one who feels Derek Carr is actually underrated. I think he gets a lot of static that he doesn't deserve. I think he is a decent quarterback. I don't think that he's had the weapons that can actually do the advanced things that they need to do. Sight reading, making adjustments, understanding the whole Chucky philosophy. Don't get me wrong. I feel Andy Reid's a better coach in terms of X's and O's, but Chucky's right there. John Gruden knows offense. I think he has a little bit of trouble getting some of the players to buy in and understand where they need to be. And I feel like if they can get all that on the same page, they could be dangerous. I am going to pick, and this will be a preview, I'm sure. I'm going to do a video of what I think's coming for the season in my season prediction here at the end of July. But I'm going to pick the Raiders to finish second. I don't know that it's going to be anything that gives the Chiefs a real run, but I do feel that the Raiders are going to be number 2. Aaron is here, and I am glad to see it. Thank you, sir. Dwight's here. Thank you very much. And I just want to take a second. I know this is about RGR, but the Locked On Chiefs 1000th episode was a big, big deal. If you listened to it, I appreciate that. And you heard just how long I've been working on this. And Chris Clark has been a great partner to this point for a lot of that ride. I started 2 shows before Chris joined me, podcasting back in 2014. As I was doing draft analysis, and it's been a long time coming. This 1000th episode of Locked On Chiefs has been 4 years in the making, and it's been quite a journey. We have covered a lot of stories. We were live the night that Alex Smith got traded. We were live at the draft. We were live when the Tyreek Hill news came out. A lot of big things. I appreciate you guys listening and checking out that form, even though it's a little bit different than this. Truly, it's been an evolution going from podcasting to this channel in particular, and a lot of that's due to you guys. This interaction is great, and again, like where I want to go in the future is about the video thing, so we can all converse. Hopefully, I haven't asked Aaron about this yet, but I'm not going to put him on the spot. But I'll tell you, I plan on incorporating Aaron Morrow into the channel, especially in the members section where we can have conversations and do Zooms that are will end up in the open sector, but definitely for the members. And it's going to be something as we move forward. I think you guys have enjoyed the shift where I'm trying to tackle some of the claims out there that just don't make any sense. Basically, I'm here to smash rumors now because there's so much conjecture going on. Stuff, people are just making stuff up half the time. So I'm trying to expand what we're doing. Dan's definitely going to help that. You're going to see Reagan Cresswell again. We're going to have more film and expertise at breaking down film than any other Chiefs site out there, print or video or whatever you want to call it. So make sure you spread the word. This, whenever we get a season, whatever this season becomes, we will have it broken down. And Mr. Tactics is back. How are you, bud? When someone asked who the bag of coal belonged to, a pirate said, "It's me, Cole." Thus, me, Cole. Don't ask where the Hardman came from just because it truly requires testicular tactics. I just wanted to put that up there because it was a long explanation for a pretty good joke, so I liked it. Skipper, can a combo of Rankin, Allegretti, and lineman Darrell Williams take over the left guard and center? And if so, will it help out the passing game or the running game with more now with Hilaire? That's Clyde Edwards. It's a great question. I have no idea where Rankin is physically. And while I feel like a recovery for him is definitely in the future, I don't know what kind of progress he's making because he hasn't been in the Chiefs facility. They haven't been able to check in on him directly in terms of supervision of his rehab and that kind of thing. So for me, Rankin's still quite a bit of a question mark. We have to see him when he finally gets to town and what they do moving forward. Allegretti's got a big challenge. Allegretti, when he played tackle, I thought was in a good spot. Getting lower, having to play down at guard, I think is a little bit difficult for him. Darrell Williams is my dark horse to make this team and maybe even push for playing time. I'm not sure that Austin Ryder is going to get unseated. I have some problems with some of the things that Reader does. His weak spots are definitely things that I wish were better. but his strengths are pretty solid, and the Chiefs coaching staff likes him, and they're comfortable with him. And I think Patrick Mahomes is comfortable with him. So unless that were to change, I don't know that we're going to see a change at center this season. But I do feel like Darrell Williams is my guy that I'm going to keep an eye on for a future spot along the starting group, and definitely an interior fill-in in the meantime. Specifically, too, what would it help out more? Rankin is more of a pass blocker. Allegretti's more of a grinder. Darrell Williams can really do both. So I would tell you, if you're just talking about the center and left guard spot, I think honestly it would probably help the pass rush or the pass set more than the run game. I don't think that you're still not getting that push. You're still not getting that grinded out power run game. It's still going to be an outside zone team. That's perfectly fine. And I do feel like all of them have their strengths and weaknesses in there, but I do feel the pass set would be more enhanced than the run game itself. Good question. Nick Newell. Any chance McCole Hardman has more receiving yards than Robinson? I would put money on it. It's a great question, Nicholas. In fact, I think this is the first question I've answered of yours, so welcome. I feel like McCole Hardman will surpass not only in how much he produces, which I think he beat Robinson in terms of yardage last year. I think he's going to see more opportunity. I think he's going to be more of a focus because of the attention on having Sammy back. Teams saw what happened in the Super Bowl and how Sammy Watkins, left as the X factor, was able to dominate Richard Sherman, and what happened down the stretch in that Super Bowl, I think really sets defenses into having to pay attention to the outside in both ways. Now, it's one thing if you motion Tyreek to the inner part where then McCole is actually on the outside of the defense, that changes a little bit. But if you can leave Tyreek and Watkins wide, I think that opens things up for McCole to really have what I think is going to be a step forward. I think he had 530 yards it was last year. I expect that to be closer to 8 to 1,000 at this point. Steve Concepcion, how are you, bud? Was the Chiefs defense more cerebral last season? Are aggressive defenses overrated in a passing game era? First, let's start with the second part. No, aggressive defenses are not overrated. It comes at the cost, though. Aggressive defenses need to be aggressive with 5, and you have to have guys that can mirror in the back. Doesn't matter if they're a zone corner or a man corner, because eventually a zone corner will have his cushion eaten up. He's still got a mirror at that point and track that receiver. It's about being effectively aggressive. And so those aggressive defenses, they got to do it with 5 guys because they got to keep enough back to cover these wide sets, these 5 wide receiver groups, etc. But aggression is still king. If you overload what the offensive line is prepared to stop, you win, period. If the fact is that you're okay at it and you can get a little bit better pass rush than, say, just rushing 4, it helps your DBs, but you still need the DBs to do their job and be able to track receivers. So it's hand in hand. I don't think they're overrated. Now, to address the first part, cerebral is a very good word for what Steve Spagnuolo did last year, not only with Fuller, but with some of the rookies in Fenton. In fact, you're going to see this week what Fenton did. Actually, you saw it in the Fenton review, how he was actually tasked with doing some of the nickel corner to high safety drops, which is a long way to go. It actually paid off for him in that interception in Mexico City against Phillip Rivers. And Dan has some more feedback on that as well. Dan's dug into the film on Charvarius Ward. That's coming, I think, on that's Thursday. Tomorrow is the rumors. I'm going to tell you about Jamal Adams and Chris Jones. And if there were a trade, could that work? Would it work? It's a rumor. It's a long shot, I'm just saying. But there is a possibility structurally it could work. I don't think it does, but I'm going to hit you with that tomorrow's video. And then after that, Dan and I are going to have a conversation about defense in general. And then his film review of Charvarius Ward is going to come up. And you're going to see some of those more intricate drops, inversions in terms of responsibility, shadowing, showing one thing and shifting to another. It is a cerebral defense. And I thought that's why it took that long to get better at the end of the season than it was at the beginning of the season. I don't know that's all it was. I think it's also partially a transition to that 4-3 to a lot of general alignment differences in having 3 linebackers or just 2 linebackers out there. And quite frankly, doing different things when you have the 3 safety set, which Steve Spagnuolo likes as much as Bob Sutton did. So in terms of using 3 safeties, and that ties into the Jamal Adams things that we'll talk about tomorrow, the 3 safety thing is unique in how you can do rotations in the secondary and where you can put those zones in terms, especially of how teams try to attack the Chiefs linebackers in crossing routes. So that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know that it's going to get more cerebral. I think what we saw is that it was difficult. It was wordy, and it was definitely about a smart man's defense. There's no coincidence there that Tyrann Mathieu and even Dan Sorensen were very much making that point that you can't outthink me. I'm prepared for this because Steve Spagnuolo has made this defense smart. What happens at that point when you learn it is those keys, the things that you have to do after recognizing what you've been trained to recognize as a smart defense, is that you react faster. And I think that helps the defense get better as well. So I do expect an improvement. Even above the fact that they're probably going to have a couple of rookies that play significant time on this defense in 2020, I do expect an improvement overall. Great question. Tactics. The real MVP of Pat's dynasty was Brady's contract. When Pat actually did pay him, when the Pats actually did pay him, he's worth the 2010 to 2012. He had to drag crappy defenses into the playoffs like Peyton and Breeze. Is that a question? When the Pats actually did pay him what he's worth, he had to drag crap. And that's a very good point. It kind of sets up, and I see what you mean about making it the MVP, because it shows what the flip side can be if you're going to spend all the money on the quarterback and what it leaves you on the defensive side in particular. But eventually it's going to leave them much, much less experienced at the weapon level as well. Sammy Watkins is expensive. Travis Kelce's expensive. He's got another contract coming. McCole Hardman's going to have a second contract coming. These are all expenses at the skill positions that make Patrick even better. They're going to be hard to fulfill. So hopefully the number continues to rise and everybody sees everything. Scott Vansel, if the Chiefs could pull the Jamal Adams trade on his remaining 2-year contract, would you be open to moving and trying Honey Badger at cornerback full time, even if it's only for 2 years? I personally would not. He's capable, but I don't think Tyrann Mathieu is optimal at the nickel corner spot. I think he's best when he's free to roam. I think he's best when he's able to be the chess master, not the chess piece. I want him to be able to make reads and make plays. I think he's the smartest guy in the secondary by far. He might be the smartest guy on the defense. Let him use that information to his optimal. That's what I would say. At the same time, it does allow you to play Adams, Thornhill more interchangeably. Quite frankly, anywhere but nickel corner interchangeably. And he could even do some of that. He lined up in the slot. I want to say it was 135 snaps last year, Jamal Adams did. And I'll have all this for you on tomorrow's video, which hopefully I will finish editing tonight. I've recorded the important part, and I'm going to give you guys the visuals over the top of it here pretty quick. Good question. It would work, but I wouldn't prefer it. Mon, I'm not sure. So Jamal Adams is a hard no. Not a hard no. I just don't think it's very realistic because of the money. And I'll tell you guys all about that tomorrow. I don't want to give it all away tonight. So make sure you tune in for that. Spread the word. I will tell you the ins and outs and honestly, the reality of it. I know he's a true safety, but we have plenty of talent that can drop down. That's true. And he can drop down too. Honestly, he reminds me more of a bulked up, stronger Tyrann than anything else. A guy that can play in the box and play deep. He's smart. He understands everything. And I'll show you some of that tomorrow too. Paul, I don't think we've answered yours before too. Welcome. Do you think that we will see an expanded screen game with Edwards-Helaire? Possibly. Not really, because screens have been a cornerstone of this offense for quite a long time. And Damian runs screens very well. I think the interesting difference is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire runs the arrows. He runs the under drags. He runs the routes between the hashes better than anybody the Chiefs have, including Damian Williams, most especially including Darwin Thompson. I saw somebody put out a clip on Twitter. I'm not sure who that was, kind of comparing how Darwin ran one and was overlooked and versus Hilaire. Darwin didn't run the route right. Darwin is not a clean route runner. He's not the pass catcher that Edwards Hilaire is. And that's where they can make the money, is you have the two outside guys in Sammy and Tyreek. Then you have to defend Kelsey and now Hardman. And now there's all this room in between two linebackers for that kind of arrow maneuver. And that's exactly what Hilaire does. Clyde Edwards-Hilaire is a better pass catcher between the hashes than any other back the Chiefs have. Let's see. Oh, Andy Anderson make it. How are you, Andy? Steve Concepcion. Would you have taken the 23rd? Who would you have taken in the 2013 draft with the Chiefs overall number 1? Good Lord. That's a great question. I would have to go pull my draft board. I honestly do not recall. I think I was leaning towards Lane Johnson, if I remember correctly. But you know what? I'll try to do that, and I'll either put it on Twitter or I'll try to mention it here later in the week. Luke Clemens, what are your predictions for Clyde's stats this year? I think he's about probably 600 yards on the 400 yards on the ground, 700 in the air. And I think he is the clearly the backup, and he's going to get a couple of starts. I don't think he's going to be the full-time starter. Dwight, maybe a redundant question. I haven't been on lately, but do you think that this could be the beginning of a Chiefs dynasty? I do, so much to the fact that that's what Seth and I talked about last week when Seth Kaiser was back on the Locked On podcast for the 1000th episode. And I posted some of that. I think it was this morning, or was it last night? My conversation with Seth, and we both agree that this could be the dawn of it. The fact that they kept the offense together to continue to lead on their strength in Patrick Mahomes sets them up to be able to do that, and I'm fairly confident that they can. It's going to be a question mark. Man, this whole season is going to be a question mark this particular year, but it's going to be about fitting under the cap going forward. That's going to be the key. Okay, a lot on here. Here's Abby. Don't mind me asking, but what happened to Jeremy Green's? I haven't seen him, Abby, and I don't think you're going to have any more to deal with there. Gary, why didn't the Chiefs try to sign Jason Witten? Because he's ancient? And honestly, I don't know. I don't think they were big on Jason Witten to begin with. He's not the athlete that they look for. He never was. He's a great tight end, but they want somebody that challenges the defense deep. That's why they went for Ricky Seals-Jones, who's more of the wide receiver tight end hybrid. Even Yelder is a good athlete and can attack deep. That's what they're looking for. AC Phillips with Taco and K-Pass and Okafor, Clark, Speaks, and Jones. What do you think our chances are being a top 5 team in total sacks? Teams playing from behind and depth at the D-line is why I ask. It's a very good question, AC. And I think this is your first question that I've seen too. It's about technique. It's about how they adjust. I expect Tano Passanio to get better. I don't expect him to be, a sack beast. That's not how I see his game. I do expect tackles for loss. He disrupts well. I don't feel that he's a finisher in the pass rush like some of the others. I think it comes down to Clark, Jones, Taco, and then we'll see what happens. I think Okafor, if he's fully healthy, might be in to pick up right where he left off, and he was on for a career year. He might have ended up with 8 or 10 sacks. I think that's kind of the order, but it's gonna be really interesting. I agree with you. They are going to have more opportunities because I do think teams are going to be playing from behind. Let's see. Next question, folks. If you're new to the channel, make sure you get subbed right now before we forget. And then please make sure you put the question marks at the beginning of your question. It makes it so much easier for me to pick them out. Mr. Burke, part of Mahomes' game, would you like to see improvement? I would like to see him really decipher pre-snap more and really try to manipulate not only deep coverage with the safeties, but even by timing the motion a little bit more, I think he can get more evaluation out of the linebacker level. I want to see him attack mentally the defense pre-snap better. It's a great question. Steven, why do the Chiefs have slow starts in all 3 playoffs games, and how do we build a lead and hold it? It's a very good question. Part of it is because part of Steve Spagnuolo's MO is that he has a base concept and then he takes what he sees and adjusts. Adjustment is a big part of Steve Spagnuolo's process. So I don't know that you're always going to see them clamp down. I do expect them to be better this year, and that may actually happen. But it has to come to a point where the players are able to learn to do film study better so that they don't give up those big plays. You see a lot of the Chiefs defense last year play solid first down, second down, and then third, they gave up a first. They were better in third down than they were the year before, but they still gave up a number of them. I think that's down to the players' execution than it is more of the scheme. Michael Uden, are we giving the other teams in the West enough credit for improvement? I certainly am. I don't think there's a challenger, but I think everybody but the overall, and don't get me wrong, the Chargers defense got better, but I don't think they did overall. Good question, Michael. Andy, who's the better back in 2020, Clyde or Jacobs? It's a great question. I think Jacobs will run for more yardage and more touchdowns. So, I mean, in terms of stat production, but Jacobs is a starter. I mean, he's a bell cow. I don't see another back in that backfield that's going to take a lot of serious touches away from him. So that would be the expectation, really. I think Clyde's going to be more explosive, and I think in terms of production per touch, I think Clyde will end up on top. Steve, if you could replace Dirty Dan with a more talented player, would you? Man, if it hadn't been for last season, I would have said yes. If this was a year ago, I would say yes without a heartbeat. But Sorensen came on. He made some really heady plays. The Spagnuolo defense is something he's better at than he was at the Sutton defense. So it would have to be a drastically better, more talented player, in my opinion. Hot and spicy. Do you think? Oh, sorry, clicked it. Do you think Justin Herbert is overrated? I think he is like Mitch Trubisky or Blake Bortles. I actually don't. I feel like he's a kid that's still way, way underrated, and he's on the way up. I think he's got a lot more to offer than he's given credit for. And quite frankly, if Anthony Lynn is able to protect him with the run game, I feel like it may actually be Justin Herbert that eventually becomes the quarterback Chiefs teams have to worry about more so than Drew Lock. Just my thought. Let's see. Big Test, how are you? You made it in. All right. First super chat of the night. Thank you very much, Thomas. I appreciate the support. How many key players can you see the Chiefs realistically trying to keep after the Mahomes contract? That's a very good question. It's going to be tough. Both the tackles are of the age where it may be difficult to hold on to them. Frank Clark is going to have to rework his contract. An extension for Tyrann Mathieu is going to be tough. Other than that, it's a question mark all the way around, and I really can't tell you what's going to happen. I think they will make every effort that they can, and I think they will rework some things. They do have a little bit of fat they can trim, and I don't think that Sammy Watkins is going to make it through another season. 2020 is going to be it. I don't think he's going to be able to return after that. Gary, if the Chiefs trade Damian Williams, can Clyde Edwards be the starter? He can. It'll be a slower pace, and that may be okay. I just don't know. All right, guys, I'm having some trouble here. I'm losing you. We're going to have to start this again. If I lose your connection, I will restart this broadcast here in a minute. Steve, is it possible to build a team like the 90s Cowboys via the draft? Yes, it certainly is. I don't see